We're the Con Guys, and this is the Con Guys Show, coming to you straight from the nerdy heart of Hollywood, California.
And this is Jim with theconguy.com.
She's been here with theconguy.com.
Katie here, aka the Con Girl.
Zordon did not want 5 teenagers with attitude.
My name is Derek Sam.
I'm Danae Sams, and that's my brother.
We are your home for news, opinions, and interviews from the world of Comic-Cons and fandoms. Your ultimate insiders for all things con! Hello, everybody. I got the DC blue behind me. Tonight we are talking about all things DC. James Gunn and Mr. Peter Safran made the announcements for the I guess we have like 10 projects altogether, 5 films, 5 TV products that came out earlier this week. So we have gathered a number of the different con guys to get together and talk about it. First, we're going to be hearing from Austin. He's from the Con Kids. Jake, he is one of our con guys correspondents. We don't hear from a lot these days. He's been pretty busy, but we'll hear from him. And then Cheeseman on the Couch is going to talk to it. Anyways, my name is Jim Fry, James D. Fry on Instagram at theconguy.com. And tonight we are just talking about all things DC. And I got to tell you, kind of excited. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of excited that DC looks like they have finally found their footing. It looks like, I think James Gunn and Peter Safran, is that how you say his name? Safran, are probably the best things going for right now. So for those of you who don't know, and we're going to jump right into it. Please follow us please check us out at theconguy.com. Follow us on our social media, theconguy.com, on Instagram, on Twitter. On Twitter, it's spelled out, DOTCOM, theconguy.com. On Instagram, it's just the Con Guy. On Facebook, the Con Guy. YouTube, the Con Guy. Follow us, guys. We want to have you along with this. Follow us, like us, give us some good comments. This is kind of a quick hit this week. It looks like I'm here all by myself. And I do have what we call Bradley Kool-Aid. Brad Young, he's actually downstairs right now. He hates being on camera, and he made me a drink to bring on the show tonight. So I guess you could say, people say you should never drink alone. Whatever, I'm going to bed after this. Anyways, DC Studios has revealed its full slate of movies and TV projects coming under the leadership of James Gunn and Peter Safran. The list includes 5 feature films and 5 television series for HBO Max. That's where the series will be. And this is being called Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. As we all know, just a real quick, again, I just want to remind you guys, we have 3 different con guys that will be jumping on here in just a second, are going to give their feedback, their perspective, and their opinions on what we just saw. I'm just giving a little introduction here. So just to let you know, just to give a little bit of a history lesson, James Gunn is the filmmaker who started back in the Trauma days, and then he made some cool films like, was it Squirt? What was the movie he made about the killer earthworm? Squirm? Oh man, it was a great nasty film. But then he came on and he came on to Marvel, and he did the Guardians of the Galaxies Part 1 and 2. Then he got in trouble because of some past social media posts, and so he was temporarily fired from Marvel. And James Gunn was an example of when you get canceled, how you should handle it. He was contrite. He was not bombastic and coming out fighting and I got wronged and everything. He whatever. We can go back and forth about the James Gunn era, but he eventually came back, and he is delivering Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy 3 coming out this year. But he, in the interim, he went over to DC. He made their Suicide Squad, which was so much better than the first Suicide Squad. And then, of course, the series Peacemaker, which can be seen on HBO Max, starring John Cena. Anyways, all that being said, as we all know, for the past 10 years or so, probably longer, the DC Comic initiative, the DC Comics over at Warner Brothers, has been kind of a troubled thing. They have some films that kind of hit and some that didn't. Some of them that were great and fun, and some of them that were not. Wonder Woman, the first one, was fantastic. So much fun with Gal Gadot. The first Aquaman with Jason Momoa, really well done. I think James Gunn's Suicide Squad was pretty good. The first Suicide Squad. Oh my gosh. Anyways, I don't want to take a lot of time here rehashing that. All that we know is James Gunn came out. He's been pretty honest in the. By the way, you like my shirt? Batman and Robin, which is one of the series. Let me give you a quick rundown of exactly what he announced, and then we're going to cut over to Austin. Austin's going to tell us what he's most excited about. He's from the Con Kids. And then Jake is one of our experts over in all things Warner Brothers. He used to work over there, so he has a cool perspective. And then cut back to Cheeseman on the couch, who is downstairs with a life-size replica of Batman himself to kind of go through things. Anyways, this is what we heard. So this past week, James Gunn, if you haven't seen it, there's a cool video online where James Gunn walks through everything. So as we all know, this year, 2023, we are getting Shazam, Fury of the Gods, coming on March 17th. The Flash is coming June 16th. Blue Beetle, August 18th, and Aquaman and the Last Kingdom on Christmas Day, December 25th. Of those, Shazam, Fury of the Gods is getting a great big media and promotional push right now with Zach Levi, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. But The Flash, coming on June 16th, starring Ezra Miller, is the big. It's been the big question mark for a bit of time because Ezra has been having some difficulties and problems, some mental issues involving crimes and whatnot. We don't need to go into all that, but right now, Warner Brothers, this $250 million behemoth of a movie, is riding on the back of Ezra Miller. So he's been in counseling and trying to bring him around. Apparently, this new Ezra Miller movie, The Flash, is going to involve time travel. Seems like all big Flash events, Flashpoint involved time travel these days. And so what's going to happen is they're going to kind of reset the DC universe. It feels like some of the characters from the past films may transition to the new films. We don't have that announced as yet, but James Gunn did publicly come out and say that he thinks that the new Flash movie is one of the best superhero movies he's ever seen. And that's saying a lot. So Flash is a time travel movie. It's going to wipe the slate clean, and we are starting fresh with new stuff. By the way, you see me looking over here. This is the other thing. We got the DC movies coming up, but did you know that this is Girl Scout cookie season? I'm just looking over here right now. I have 2 boxes of tag-alongs that I got. Got these Samoas. Of course, the Thin Mints. What is this? Lemon Ups. I've never had the Lemon Ups. I just want to say, if you guys get a chance, go out and support the Girl Scouts, which is a great organization. Love the Girl Scouts. They've been doing so good for so long. And more power to them. Plus, we get great cookies. Anyways, that was just a little bit of a side. So here's the movies that were announced by James Gunn this week. All right, first up, and I think this is the only movie that actually has a date, July 11th, 2025. So we're looking 2 years down the road. James Gunn is writing the brand new Superman Legacy, which is going to follow Kal-El as he reconciles his extraterrestrial origins with his human family and upbringing. It sounds kind of similar to, basically it's a Superman origin story, but Henry Cavill is not returning, and that's caused a great deal of controversy and nerddom. People say, oh, and James Gunn went out of his way to say Henry Cavill was not fired. He just, this is not the movie that he was not cast in this movie. So whatever. James Gunn also went out of his way to say, he feels like James Gunn was getting dicked around by executives over there. So whatever this case be, the first movie out of the gate is Superman Legacy. I'm going to go through these really quickly now because we're going to jump over to what the con guys have to say. The Authority, a superhero ensemble from 1999, published under DC's Wildstorm imprint. The Authority is a group of 7 heroes with very high concept superpowers. For example, Jack Hawksmoor is psychically bound to cities, drawing his strength from them. It's going to be the first appearance of Wildstorm canon in the DC universe. Wildstorm was a imprint, like a subsidiary of the main DC. All right. And I'm wearing this shirt because the next movie is going to be The Brave and the Bold. It's a Silver Age DC Comics title that for about 15 years, from 67 to 83, starred Batman and Robin in crossover story. So in other words, we're getting Batman and Robin movie. I'm just super excited about that. So we're also going to get Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. We haven't seen Supergirl movies since 1984 Supergirl, starring Helen Slater as Kara Zor-El and Faye Dunaway as her nemesis. And then, of course, this one that's really cool. We're getting Swamp Thing. We've had a couple of Swamp Thing movies, one of them famously directed by Wes Craven back in 1982, I think. Yeah. And DC's studio lineup announcement says only that this movie will investigate the dark origins of Swamp Thing. So that's our 5 movies: Superman, The Authority, The Brave and the Bold, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Swamp Thing. I think of all those, I'm most excited about seeing that Brave and the Bold, the Batman and Robin. We haven't really had a great Batman and Robin movie, so this might be it. All right. TV shows, Creature Commandos. This is being written by James Gunn. Amanda Waller, who is the director of the Suicide Squad, we have all seen her. She forms another superhero team out of monstrous prisoners, like a Frankenstein monster, a werewolf, a vampire, and then a Gorgon, Medusa, who had the hair with the snakes and turned people to stone. So this is going to be interesting. We'll see how they do that. So that's Creature Commandos. The next TV series is called Waller. So Waller basically stars Viola Davis in the lead role, and it's going to feature Team Peacemaker and written by Chris Henry, who wrote The Watchmen. And Supernatural's Jeremy Carver. That makes me excited. So Creature Commandos, Waller. Then here's a cool one, Booster Gold. This is kind of a comic book, a funny comic book movie or TV series. DC's longtime comic relief character is a time traveler who uses basic technology and consumer appliances from the future to make himself a superhero in present day. Booster Gold. All right, 2 more. Lanterns. It's going to be about the Green Lanterns Corps. It's going to be a big TV event focused on Hal Jordan from the Silver Age Green Lantern series and John Stewart, who appeared in 1971, and they're going to be looking at a dark mystery together. And finally, this one's kind of interesting, Paradise Lost. Basically Wonder Woman. It's not a Wonder Woman per se. It's set in Themyscira. It's a show about the history and character arc of, Paradise Island, where Wonder Woman came from, the Amazons. It's not clear if Wonder Woman is going to be at the center of this, but it's being described as a Game of Thrones style drama. So real quick, the 5 TV shows: Creature Commandos, Waller, Booster Gold, Lanterns, and Paradise Lost. Let me finish real quick. They have this weird collection of shows, like Todd Phillips' sequel to The Joker is coming out, Matt Reeves' Batman movies. These are going to be falling under a banner called DC Elseworlds. In other words, they're over there somewhere. They're not main canon, but they'll exist and kind of complement the whole overall DC stuff. Anyways, you're tired of hearing from me. We are going to first hear from Austin. Austin is the Con Kid. He leads the Con Kids podcast, and he has a little bit to say about the announcement.
What's up, guys? Austin here, aka the Con Kid. Just watched James Gunn's announcement, and 3 projects I'm looking super forward to this year are: 1, Blue Beetle, featuring none other than Miguel himself from Cobra Kai. Looking super forward to that. Comes out August 18th. The second series, actually, is the Green Lantern series. Looking super forward to them using Green Lantern again, ever since the disaster that was Green Lantern. Best part about the movie was definitely Ryan Reynolds. And then the third, and certainly not least, the thing I'm looking most forward to is Booster Gold, the TV series. The idea of a cocky superhero coming back in time and just acting like he's all that sounds super fun and entertaining. So I really hope they do some fun things with that. And that's my take over the new projects coming out.
Thank you, Austin. That's pretty cool. If you guys get a chance, check out the Con Kids. They're going to be covering a lot of this. Austin's in college now, so he's a little bit busy. He doesn't have quite as much time on his hands. All right, Jake Thomas. Jake is a guy that has appeared on our show many, many times, and we love Jake. He has an inside scoop of all things Warner Brothers. He is also really big into comics. He is a screenwriter, but just to let you know, like most of us are out here in Hollywood. I'm a screenwriter. Cheeseman's a screenwriter, and Jake is also a screenwriter. Jake actually just got, signed on to representation. So really happy for him. Congratulations, Jake. And me and Cheeseman's just finally this week, we've been accepted into the Writers Guild of America West. I'm so excited about that. First email we get is, we're going on strike, by the way. Maybe. We'll see. I don't want to put that out there. All right. So Jake Thomas, he's one of our experts on all things DC Comics. Jake just bought a new house. He's out in the front yard of his new house, and this is what he had to say.
Gang, don't worry, I'm not being hunted by the Blair Witch. It just happens that there are many different video calls taking place in my house at the moment, and believe it or not, the quietest room is outside. But let's take a look at some of the announcements from DC Studios. James Gunn, Peter Safran finally told us what's happening. I'm sure everyone's read the list ad nauseum of what's happening in movies and TV shows, so I won't go through an exhaustive list of what's going to happen, but just some general takeaways. I'm going to be referencing this as I talk about things. One of the first things that struck me was it does seem to be kind of a mix of the Marvel method of trying to give some emphasis for some things that we haven't really seen that much of before, and primarily I'm thinking about the Commandos thing, the Creature Commandos. This is something that really interested me because I've never heard about this before, and I read DC Comics, but it's an animated series that's already in the works, has not been cast yet, and they're looking to tie in this animated series also with actors who will play the live-action version of these characters in feature films or other projects. That's interesting. But that, and also bringing in the Authority, is something that strikes me as, okay, they're going to go for the more obscure, character-based groups, which probably sounds very familiar to anyone familiar with James Gunn's Marvel work, but trying to emphasize something that's a bit more insular, I guess you'd say, something that doesn't have as much of a predisposed fan base, so they can really focus on making something that stands on a strong story that fits in with the grander scheme as a whole. The other takeaway is kind of related to the Authority as well too. That's nothing like a kid's book, and there's a couple of projects here, particularly the one on Themyscira, Paradise Lost, which sounds, as they've described it, like Game of Thrones on Themyscira, predating the Wonder Woman films, as well as the way that they described the Green Lantern movie, which seemed to be like True Detective with Green Lanterns, specifically Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. I'm curious just how much of the new slate of films and TV shows are going to be skewed towards adults. Because think about it. Throughout 2020, 2021, the whole pandemic, Birds of Prey, Zack Snyder's Justice League, The Suicide Squad, pretty much every major release from DC was an R-rated affair. And James Gunn had a hand in that too with The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, so I'm curious just how much they're willing to push some of the darker elements of these movies, when I know that people have kind of chastised DC for going too dark with some of the characters in the past, but it sounds like they're avoiding that with some of the other things, namely Superman, with this Superman Legacy movie that's announced. I liked the words that he used when he was saying, I forget where it was right now, but I saw him basically balancing his Kryptonian heritage and his Earth upbringing, but also I saw one statement, either from Gunn, Safran, or someone else, commenting on how they were going to make it about a kind man in an unkind world that doesn't want to be a part of that, and that strikes me as a really nice tone to grab. And just the fact that it's not an origin story, but maybe a young Clark in Metropolis story, I'm getting shades of, J. Michael Straczynski's Superman Earth 1, for those who have read that book, or maybe even a little bit of the Mark Waid Birthright, which was one of my favorite origin stories for that character. Again, they said it's not an origin story, which is exciting, but along with kind of copying the Marvel template, I think they're approaching Superman the same way that Marvel approached Spider-Man once they got those film rights, the permissions back, and Tom Holland took over the role from Andrew Garfield. So I'll be excited about that. And the other thing I'm excited about with the new Superman movie is it's released in 2025, which is going to be the same year as The Batman Part 2. So we're getting a feature-length Batman movie and a feature-length Superman movie in the same year. So that reminds me of back in 2015 when we were supposed to get Avengers Age of Ultron, Batman vs. Superman, and The Force Awakens all in one year. And that was originally going to be the end of fandom as we knew it, which ended up being 2019 as Endgame, Game of Thrones, and Star Wars all came to an end. But 2025 is going to be a nice big year for DC with 2 new movies from their flagship characters. Regarding Batman, it's kind of neat that they're approaching the story from the Damian Wayne angle, who got introduced in comics like a little over a decade ago by Grant Morrison. And I'm curious about how this is going to play in with what they've done with Titans, because Titans has really kind of approached a lot of the story of the Robins, if you approach it that way. Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake. But, I mean, it's kind of an interesting take to begin a Batman story, or a Batman Robin story, with the most lethal, deadliest, psychotic Robin that they have out there, who he became a fan favorite eventually, but also, not to give too much away from what happened in the comics, that character did have a beginning, middle, and end, so maybe that's part of the thinking involved in that. They can really build a complete story around that relationship. I am kind of bummed that they won't try to group the Pattinson Batman into the larger DCU as a whole, because The Batman was one of my favorite movies from 2022, and I was glad to see it get some Oscar love. But, you know, I think back to 2005 when Chris Nolan rebooted Batman, and the very next year you had a reboot of Superman, even though Superman Returns was not the best film. You know, were the early Marvel movies all the best film? No, but you know, you had your two flagship characters right there that could have started a whole new universe. We could have had that chance again in 2025, who knows? But those are just some general takeaways. Again, this was all really fun to read, and there's been no shortage of articles that have been released afterwards, just going over all the different characters that they're going to talk about, like Booster Gold, the other shows. Last point, it's really interesting that just like from that Jurassic Park video game sequel, The Chaos Continues, something has survived. And that is Amanda Waller has survived, apparently. So she's going to get her own show, and they're going to continue that thread from the DC universe. So hey, keep an Oscar winner in your tool belt, I always say. That is sound advice, but that's my DC overview.
We need to get Jake on the show some more. I just love it when somebody has a little bit of a gravitas and come on and tell us about what's happening. So I misspoke earlier. It is not a Superman origin story. It's but from what I understand, it's Superman around age 25. So it's towards the beginning of Superman's his adventures, his time as Superman. So that's kind of interesting, and I to what Jake just said, it is interesting that the Matt Reeves Batman is not being brought into the canon, but it's kind of also interesting. I know that the Joker, Todd Phillips' Joker, was super dark and super kind of like out. It's a super R-rated version of stuff, but isn't it? I don't know. Maybe sometimes I was kind of thinking that Todd Phillips' version of the Joker and Matt Reeves' version of the Batman could somehow play in the same universe, but I don't think that's going to happen. All right. Last but not least, Cheeseman on the Couch has some interesting perspectives, and he watched the announcements, and he is there with Batman himself. So, all right, last but not least, Cheeseman on the Couch.
Hey, what's up? It's Cheeseman here, hanging out with Batman, also rocking some Hero Within product placement. Just got the James Gunn news here the past couple days, and just wanted to share my thoughts. Overall, I was very excited when I heard James Gunn would be taking over. But at the same time, James Gunn has a style. I haven't seen, how he produces other content. I did see the Brightburn movie, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. So I'm still kind of somewhat in the iffy zone, but I've liked, the Guardians of the Galaxy and the different things he's done with Marvel. So, and what Marvel has really done well is, they make the characters feel like real people, and there's a lot of depth. I just got done watching Captain America Civil War, and just there was a lot of relatability in that as far as characters go to just normal people like you and me. But I'm just hoping that James Gunn will kind of bring that into DC and kind of keep that. There's a lot of heart, and he talked about story being very important, and as a screenwriter, I very much care a lot about the story and these things. So there's a lot of announcements made. Obviously, as a Batman fan, I'm very excited about the Brave and the Bold. Hopefully, that will turn out pretty cool. I was always a big fan of the Adam West Batman and Robin, as you can see. So kind of seeing that new angle of his Damian Wayne, which is actually Robin will be playing his son, which will be a very interesting take. And it sounds like he's kind of a wild child, which will add a good contrast with Batman. Because again, as a storyteller, having contrast, with the characters, maybe Batman's a little more serious than the Robin character might be a little kind of unstable in some ways, and it'll create some good conflict between the two of them. I remember seeing a little bit of Swamp Thing when I was younger, so it sounded like he's doing kind of a darker take, but it overall will connect to the overall universe, so that'll be very interesting to see how we'll do that. And James Gunn's always done good with these different characters that kind of almost have these, alien or monster kind of looks, so I'm sure he'll do a great job with that. But again, just hopefully he'll keep kind of the heart. There was a lot of heart in Guardians of the Galaxy with Yondu and the daddy line and all that, which was kind of a heartbreaker. And I'm Mary Poppins, y'all, and just other stuff that related to real life. James Gunn's always good at bringing like music, especially into the storytelling. So we'll see what happens. And he's doing his own version of Superman, which will definitely be interesting, and especially doing kind of a younger thing. So again, hopefully the human side will be a big part of that, and the relatability of not just seeing him as this big kind of like we're watching from far away, but making Superman relatable will hopefully be something they're doing. And there's a lot of other announcements that have been made, but I'd have to say probably the other one I'm most excited about is the Booster Gold, which is kind of this loser from the future that takes the technology of the future to go back and become a big star superhero in the past, which I'm very interested in. And as someone that also writes for television, this will be a TV type thing, so that I'd say has got to be probably one of the most I'm excited about. And they also did mention Lanterns, which is a Green Lantern take but has a true detective element as a TV series, so interested to see what they'll doing that. So I'm pulling for you, James Gunn. I like your enthusiasm you had in your video and saying you've been a fan like us since you're a child. So I really think that if you're taking over content or being involved, you really need to have that childlike fandom feeling if you're, taking on something that's going to impact so many people. And it sounds like he really does feel passionate and feel like he's a fan of things. And I do like how some of these storylines and things he's doing, especially even with the Supergirl, like is more of a modern take of the comic that just recently came out. But then, some of these other ones were like taken from like different times in comics from like the 70s or 80s. So they're doing a whole cool variety of things from looking to the past to the current and all that. So I am excited about that. And he does do a good job with creatures again and all that. So James Gunn, we're pulling for you. Hopefully this all will be good. And I also did hear too, one last thing is that I think they're going to be smart about it and bring in some of these, like the Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, Aquaman. They might make some cameos or things along the way to kind of bring these new characters to light. Because a lot of times, studios will just do the storyline and it's hard to get interested because maybe you haven't heard of the character. But if they bring in some of these other people to make cameos along the way, it'll help make the transition easier for these new characters that they're wanting to bring to DC. So was hoping they would bring more Superman and Black Adam together, but we'll see what happens with that storyline. And, obviously, there's some movies coming out this year with Flash. I'm most excited about Michael Keaton and Batman. Hopefully there'll be some spin-offs of that. Maybe bring Michelle Pfeiffer back or Tim Burton back to direct. So we'll see what's going to happen. And Batman.
It's kind of crazy. Like, when's the last time we got this excited about DC? I mean, that sounds terrible. I'm a big DC fan. I grew up in DC Comics, but we're excited about DC movies right now. We're excited, and it's almost one of those things where every time a DC movie is announced, it's get ready to come out. All of us fans, we go just ready to defend it from people who aren't going to like it so much. But I mean, this is kind of cool. Listen, let's not pretend like James Gunn is the second coming or something like that. He might be, but So James Gunn and Peter Safran together are kind of like the equivalent of Kevin Feige over at Marvel. And good. We need that. Like, you know, we need better movies. And I'm not, let's not lie to ourselves. Marvel has had such an incredible run. This last year maybe isn't the best part of the Marvel run of the past 12 years, but they've had an incredible run. DC has had been a little bit spotty, had some really fun films, and then some not so great films. Maybe this is the dawn of DC. The last decade was the Marvel decade. Maybe this next decade is the DC decade. That would be great. The thing that's interesting is that if we are putting Kevin Feige and James Gunn, like side by side, they're two sides. There's the Marvel guy and there's the DC guy. There is a little bit of a difference. James Gunn is writing. It looks like he's writing TV series. He's writing films. He's like so involved. Whereas Kevin Feige is a little bit less of the writer director. Although apparently Kevin Feige has a Star Wars movie coming out soon. Anyways, it's all so this kind of plays well. I was kind of thinking that maybe I was just being stupid and thinking this. I was thinking that the big announcements from DC, they were going to wait until either WonderCon or Comic-Con to have the big panel, but James Gunn has set up some anticipation. So Warner Brothers might have a pretty impressive panel this year at San Diego Comic-Con or even at WonderCon coming up in March. So anyways, Luke and Jake and Austin, thank you for your input. I'll tell you what, I'm also kind of interested in Waller. Bring back Viola Davis. Let's see how she does. Kind of leading another superhero group. I think that's going to be cool. The Paradise Lost is going to be interesting. It's kind of a cool play on words. Paradise Lost, Milton's Paradise Lost, Paradise Island, Superman Legacy. The 1977 Superman starring Christopher Reeve was such a high watermark of comics and film and John Williams score and it's just so amazing. I would love for us to get back and make a Superman movie that captured the goodness and greatness and the hope of that original Superman movie back in the day. Christopher Reeve and Margot Ritter, just nothing better. If we can somehow capture that. Superman's a hard one to make because, they're calling this gods and monsters. Gods, Superman. Superman's basically a modern god myth in our culture. And then the monsters, a lot of monsters, Swamp Thing could be cool. Anyways, thank you for watching. This is our quick hit. We heard the news about the announcement this week. So instead of pulling everybody together and onto a podcast, we just kind of said, hey, give us your opinions and let's see if we can pull it all together. Anyways, my name is Jim. You can find me again at James D. Fry on Instagram, Jim Fry LA on Twitter, but just check us out at theconguy.com. Check out The Con Guy, The Con Girls, The Con Kids. We have a great 2023 ahead of us. And thank you guys so much for checking us out tonight. And we're looking forward to many, many great things from DC. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to The Con Guy Show, the official program of theconguy.com. Find us on the Weevy Geeks Collective or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And now on sci-fi.radio, Saturdays at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, both AM and PM. That's 9 o'clock Greenwich. It's sci-fi for your Wi-Fi.